In 1901, off a tiny Greek island, sponge divers descended into freezing water to escape a storm. What they found on the seafloor wasn't sponges, it was a shipwreck, and inside it, something that would confuse scientists for the next 100 years. Tangled in rotted wood and coral was a lump of corroded bronze, barely the size of a shoebox. Divers nearly tossed it aside as scrap. But inside that lump were gears, dozens of them, cut with a precision no one expected from the ancient world. This object is now called the Antikythera Mechanism. And after more than a century of research, X-rays and CT scans, one uncomfortable question remains. How did people, 2,200 years ago, build a machine this advanced? And why does nothing like it appear again for over 1,000 years? Let's go back to the wreck itself. The ship sank around 60 BC, likely en route from the eastern Mediterranean to Rome, loaded with luxury cargo, statues, glassware, coins. The mechanism was just one crate among hundreds, easy to overlook, almost lost to history twice. For decades after its recovery, the bronze lump sat in a museum drawer in Athens, mostly ignored. Archaeologists assumed it was some kind of clock or astrolabe fragment. Interesting, but not extraordinary. Nobody had the tools yet to see what was actually hidden inside the corrosion. That changed in 1951, when British historian Derek de Solla Price became obsessed with the object. He spent nearly 2 decades studying it, using early gamma-ray and X-ray imaging to peer through the calcified bronze without destroying it. What the images revealed stunned him. Inside the corrosion were at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, some with teeth just over a millimeter apart, arranged in a system far more complex than any known ancient instrument. Price published his findings in 1974, calling it in essence an ancient analog computer. But the technology of the time still couldn't fully map the mechanism's insides. It would take another 30 years and a new generation of imaging tools before researchers could finally see the whole machine, every gear, every inscription, every tooth, without breaking it apart. In 2005, a team using a custom-built microfocus X-ray CT scanner captured 3-dimensional images of the mechanism's interior at a resolution never before possible. For the first time, scientists could count the gears precisely and read thousands of tiny inscribed Greek characters. The results reshaped everything. The mechanism contained at least 30 surviving gears. Researchers believe the original had upward of 37, driving multiple dials on the front and back of the device, all turned by a single hand crank. Turn that crank, and the front dial tracked the position of the sun and moon against the zodiac, showing where they'd appear in the sky on any given date, past or future. A secondary sphere even displayed the moon's phase, using a clever gear system that modeled its irregular orbital speed. On the back, 2 spiral dials tracked far longer cycles. A 19-year calendar synchronizing lunar months with the solar year, and a 223-month cycle used to predict solar and lunar eclipses, decades before they'd actually occur. And that's where the real question emerges, one we still can't fully answer. If a civilization over 2,000 years ago could build this, what happened to the knowledge? Why does nothing this advanced show up again until the astronomical clocks of medieval Europe? Let's sit with that gap for a moment. The next known geared astronomical devices don't appear until roughly the 14th century in cathedral clocks across Europe, over 1,400 years after the Antikythera Mechanism went to the bottom of the sea. That's not a small gap. It's one of the strangest discontinuities in the history of technology, a level of mechanical sophistication that seemingly vanishes, only to be reinvented from scratch over a millennium later, by people with no apparent knowledge it had ever existed. So who actually built it? The inscriptions on the mechanism reference a Greek calendar used in Corinth and its colonies, and some researchers point to the island of Rhodes, a known center of astronomy and engineering in the 2nd century BC, as the likely origin. One name comes up again and again in this debate: Archimedes. The Roman writer Cicero described a bronze device built by Archimedes that modeled the motions of the sun, moon, and planets, built roughly a century before this shipwreck sank. Archimedes was killed in 212 BC, decades before the Antikythera ship went down. But some historians argue the mechanism could represent an evolved descendant of his design, proof that a tradition of precision astronomical engineering existed in the Greek world far longer than we assumed. What makes this even more remarkable is the manufacturing precision required. Cutting dozens of bronze gears with matching interlocking teeth by hand demands a level of measurement and metalworking control we associate with clockmakers over 1,000 years later, not ancient shipbuilders. Some researchers believe the mechanism wasn't a one-off invention at all, but the product of an established workshop tradition, meaning there were likely other machines like it. If that's true, this may simply be the only one that happened to survive a shipwreck and 2,000 years underwater. That idea reframes the whole mystery. It's not necessarily that the ancient world built one miraculous machine. It's that an entire branch of engineering knowledge may have existed and then been lost almost completely, leaving this single corroded fragment as the only surviving evidence. Wars, the burning of libraries, the collapse of institutions that funded this kind of research, any of these could explain why the knowledge didn't survive. Complex technical knowledge, unlike simple tools, doesn't persist on its own. It requires institutions, students, and continuity. All three can vanish fast. Today, the Antikythera Mechanism sits in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, still being studied with tools its makers could never have imagined. Every new scan adds detail, but the biggest questions, who exactly built it and what else they built, remain open. It's a rare kind of artifact, proof, not theory, that ancient engineering reached a level of sophistication we still don't fully understand. Not a myth, not a rumor, a physical machine, sitting in a case, daring modern science to explain it. So the next time someone tells you ancient people were technologically primitive, remember this. Over 2,000 years ago, someone built a machine that predicted eclipses using nothing but bronze, gears, and an understanding of the sky that we're still trying to fully match. SFX, final mechanical click, fade to silence.